Live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a live jam-packed Saturday morning here for you on the One Hit Show on all social media platforms. That is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening this morning. Live in the 702 iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. Those are all the social medias you can like, follow, and subscribe to get you up to date with future and past shows. Bottom half of the hour, we finally made it, folks. It is NFL playoff prime predictions, as we'll be getting geared up for the rest of the games going on between tonight and, of course, Sunday and Monday as well. Boy, we got a lot of really good ones, a lot of really good headliners. I'm beyond ecstatic and excited of what this is going to be for at least tonight and even moving forward. So I do want to dig into this. So basically, this is a for real topic. It's finally happening. The Las Vegas Raiders now have been opening up, inquiring to trading away Derek Carr. And I know a lot of people, a lot of different analysts, they have all weighed their 2 cents in on the entirety of the situation of what's happening within the Raiders organization, what has happened all throughout the tenure that Derek Carr has spent there. And listen, not a lot of things, and especially when it becomes being a franchise quarterback, because especially in Derek Carr's place, where you land ultimately matters. You want a stable franchise. You want a stable owner, general manager, head coach, have a very talented roster all the way around. That's why Kansas City's so successful. So is Buffalo. So is the Eagles. So is a lot of different organizations who have the right quarterback, they have the right head coach, they have the right general manager, because that all stems from the owner. So this Raiders organization, as I've always remembered it, is it's super traditional. Just like the Cowboys, just a little bit like Detroit, and like how it is about, some bits and pieces of Green Bay. It's traditional. Everybody has a tradition of their own. And the one thing about the Raiders, their biggest slogan is just win, baby. That's what they are. It doesn't matter exactly what the high stakes are. Doesn't matter if their backs are against the wall in certain situations. They just find ways to win. Well, here's the difference. Derek Carr, since he's been drafted in 2014, the defenses he's had since his tenure all have been ranked in the bottom tier, near the 30s, 32nd, 31st, 30th in a lot of different categories. You really think it's fair for Derek Carr to have to save this franchise over and over and over again? My biggest thing about Derek Carr is I think he's such a good person. And it's as I've said before, his kids, they all live out here and they loved the Vegas experience. I mean, hell, everybody's going to be seeing him preach today since he goes to the churches, because he's on 3 things that he carries in his life: faith, family, and football. That is what Derek Carr is about. Very down to earth. Not of this earth either. So, one thing you have to understand is that Derek Carr's willing to do anything to getting an offense rolling. And what drives a lot of Raider fans nuts at times is usually because it isn't always about Derek Carr. Their offensive line is atrocious outside of Colton Miller and one other piece. I mean, they drafted Alex Leatherwood, who was clearly a reach in the first round, and he was just getting pushed over. I mean, he was like one of those, when you go into practice and you've got one of those blown up, like just, one of those paddings that you just kind of bust through, like they do it for offensive lines, D lines. You know what I'm talking about. That's usually how he was in the offensive line. You just push him over, knock him down, and down he goes. Derek Carr, this is the funny thing. Have you looked at all the quarterbacks who have the best fourth quarter comeback drives? It ain't Tom Brady. It's not Aaron Rodgers because he gets way too pressurized, even in Lambeau at home. It's not even Matthew Stafford. Even though Stafford last year had some really good drives getting the Rams to the Super Bowl. No, it has been Derek Carr the whole time. Why do you think Derek Carr feels so worn out? Because it's like he has to save the franchise almost every given Sunday, which is why he's getting tired of it. And he even put in on his social media, put it on in his Instagram post. He felt heartbroken because the Raiders, and this is also a life learning lesson for every single one of us, understand the person that you are investing 110% with in a relationship. I mean, I'm getting married in October 21st. I found my best friend. We click on several different levels. Yeah, we may get under each other's nerves and each other's skin, but I wouldn't have it any other way because we both work like a team. The Raiders have cheated on Derek Carr. They have disappointed him. And at the same time, they really weren't giving anything as far as a benefit for Derek Carr to thrive. So he had to carry all of that weight on his shoulders just to lead the Raiders to the playoffs last year. And that sucks. But here's what's crazy because there's a few trade potentials. I think the New York Jets would be a really good fit. I'm not sure about Carolina because I do think that they are a rebuilding organization and they're going to need a lot more than just having Derek Carr there. They got to rebuild that offensive line. They got to get better on that defense. But I honestly do think that if the Vikings lose tomorrow, which there's a good possibility, and I'll talk about that in my prime predictions. If they lose tomorrow, what makes you think they won't make a call to the Raiders about inquiring about Derek Carr? What is it about Kirk Cousins that drives Vikings fans nuts? Is the inconsistencies and the inability to step up in primetime games when those games matter. This is a playoff atmosphere. That game matters. And if they lose to the Giants, you really think they wouldn't make a call? I honestly think it would be a good idea because then it would give Minnesota somebody who could honestly make real good fourth quarter clutch drive throws. And they've actually got a real decent offensive line. They'll work it a little bit, and then all they have to do is work the defense. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to be going into a Minnesota organization with a stacked offensive weapons, which is clearly exactly what Derek Carr has been wanting because the Raiders just kept trading everybody away. Trade Khalil Mack, trade Amari Cooper, trade everybody else, and never giving him any benefit to grow. So I feel like the Jets, the Vikings could be a really good fit. And one other organization that doesn't feel like could be a good fit is Miami. And I think they're crazy and nuts. They're like, oh, we got Tua, we got Teddy Bridgewater. That's never going to be enough. Tua is hurt majority of the time. He's small. He's had concussions. Had one that was scary that made his hands look like this. You really are going to try to invest in that? And what's worse, the Dolphins lose, they're going to get boat raced. And then they're thinking about, oh, well, let's just fire Mike McDaniel. Like, that's just going to save all your problems, right? Dolphins are just absolutely just a tire fire waiting to explode. And even when they had Brian Flores, this is what's crazy. They were 1-7 before they became 8-8. And then I believe they were about 7-3 until they became 8-8 again with Mike McDaniel. What difference does it make? It doesn't make any sense with Miami. I thought if Derek Carr could fit in Miami, he's got Jalen Waddle and he's got Tyreek Hill. He's got several of those pieces. Offensive line could use some help. Defense could use some help. I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you? My big thing is, because you're either going to shoot to going and getting Derek Carr or you're going to shoot to try to go and get Lamar Jackson, whichever you prefer. I think if they get Lamar Jackson, that's a super speedy offense. There's speed everywhere. So all I know is that wherever Derek Carr is going to end up going, I think that if he goes to the Jets, and he's looking on that calendar, because if they're facing the Raiders, you don't think Derek Carr wants a say in what happens up into that game and he wants a revenge against the Raiders organization? Good God, he's going to throw it in their face. It's going to prove to Mark Davis that he made an absolute mistake, and they should have done better. Because we know with Josh McDaniels and his offensive play calling, it's not easy. It just seems difficult. But again, part of the reason is too, Tom Brady didn't win Super Bowls because of Josh McDaniels. Tom Brady won Super Bowls because he's a competitor. He's willing to take a pay cut. He's willing to get better players around him. That had nothing to do with Josh McDaniels. The relationship between him and Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. Josh is only just there, just calling the offensive play calling because that's exactly what the duties are as an OC. So I'm hoping the Raiders do bounce back from some ways, but what you're seeing is what you're getting. This has been the absolute dysfunction for the last few years in this organization, and it has not gotten better since. And you can clearly see that. That's why if they're willing to move off Derek Carr, which clearly it seems that they are, you're going to be 15 to 20 quarterbacks deep before you find your franchise quarterback. You can ask Raider fans how long this has been happening ever since they've moved off Rich Gannon. They have not found their franchise quarterback until Derek Carr stepped in the building in 2014. True stuff. So, and again, he's throwing for 4,000 passing yards. So, I think wherever Derek Carr goes, I would absolutely wish the best of successes. And I hope that the fan base loves him too. Because there are parts of it where he deserves respect. He deserves credit. I think that if you go to the Jets, because Robert Saleh, defensive-minded coach with offensive weapons, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Mitchell, Breece Hall, Michael Carter, those guys are top tier and a great defense, which is what Derek Carr's been asking for. I think this could be a very, very good thing. All right. So the NFL playoffs start tonight. And obviously we got our two games, which is basically the Seahawks against the 49ers, Chargers against the Jags. When we got several teams as well. Dolphins against the Bills, Giants against the Vikings, Baltimore against Cincinnati, and then, of course, Dallas against Tampa. So these playoffs, here's what's crazy about this. Let's look at the AFC side. These playoffs are so stacked because the AFC has such high expectations versus what the NFC has. The AFC, if you look at all the quarterback talents, every single one of them are first-round drafts. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. All those guys are first-round talents. And if they played, Lamar Jackson and Tua. But Lamar, he's out. He's not playing. So this means that Baltimore, they are going to heavily rely on defense against the Bengals, knowing it's an in-division rivalry playoff atmosphere. And then the Dolphins, similar thing. They're starting Skylar Thompson because Tua is hurt. So is Teddy Bridgewater. And they can't get a quarterback that can distribute the football to any of those components. So I feel like they are going to get boat raced badly against Buffalo. Now, if you look at the NFC, Jalen Hurts, second-round pick. Brock Purdy, seventh-rounder. Seattle, you had Geno Smith, but he's the only one that you got, and he's been an absolute journeyman. Geno Smith is just an interesting story. Plus, you also have Dallas with um, Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was a fourth rounder. And then there's Tom Brady, late rounder too. But Tom Brady, the difference is he's won multiple Super Bowls in his career and was doubted every step of the way throughout his NFL career. But every single one of these guys, they're all gems. They're not even first round big time talents. If you look around that whole NFC, I mean, hell, even Kirk Cousins is a late rounder. So, and Daniel Jones, I mean, Daniel Jones would be the one first round pick, but hard to really invest in a guy from Duke, which hardly anybody even finds capable quarterbacks from that school. They really do. And all their production levels, it's really interesting. That's why the AFC has so much high expectations because they're getting a lot of these first round quarterbacks. And these first round quarterbacks are splashing. They're hitting every cylinder. That's why I think it'll be entertaining tonight between the Chargers and the Jags because both quarterbacks are first round talents, both of them who are smashing records. But at the same time, the difference is Justin Herbert, when he came into this league, he took us all by surprise. And he's already at 101 touchdown passes in his career to start with in 3 years. And then Trevor Lawrence, he had a down year in his rookie year and then revived back the second they hired Doug Peterson, former quarterback. So there's so much positive upsides, but I feel like that for the NFC, look at the draft class this year. Bryce Young, Will Levis, CJ Stroud, and there's several others. But I feel like you could possibly get something out of it. But I think the NFC really has to step up a lot of their quarterback play and at the very least get offensive quarterbacks who could distribute the football, who could play off script, and can control the flow and the pace of the game. That's exactly how it because the game's gotten fast. And so for a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFC, I mean, Jalen Hurts is getting better and better every week, every year. And for everybody else in the NFC, there's question marks about their quarterbacks. There's question marks about Kirk Cousins. There's question marks about Daniel Jones. I don't think there's ever going to be question marks about San Francisco's quarterback role, but there's always questions about Trey Lance. So my big thing about San Francisco, they have somebody that's distributing the football and is accurate. And all he's doing is just executing the role that Kyle Shanahan asked for. That's what it is. So in the end, San Francisco has a system in place. Even if they got a first round pick like Trey Lance, the only problem is raw, talented, but can't be as accurate, can't really get the football to a lot of those guys. And that's where you're hoping everything works in their favor. I mean, Green Bay moved up in the draft to get Jordan Love, but Aaron Rodgers didn't really want to end up dealing with all of it. So, and clearly Jordan Love can play. So, I think the NFC, they really have to think about this very, very clearly because this draft, there's possibilities. And the next draft, because you'll have Drake May and Caleb Williams, you'll have several opportunities. Maybe you throw in a Hendon Hooker. Possibly. But there is a lot to look forward to. And then there's even that kid at Kansas, Jalen Daniels. I think he might be an interesting pick. But ultimately, I think the NFC, they really have to look at every single one of these quarterbacks all throughout the conference because the AFC has just been completely stacked. They are blessed with a lot of top-ranked, first-round talented quarterbacks who are obviously hitting on every cylinder possible, and they are breaking and smashing records, winning Super Bowls on top of it because Patrick Mahomes, he's already got one. And the rest of them, I mean, Lamar Jackson's got an MVP. Justin Herbert's he's just that damn good, and he's that talented. So is Trevor Lawrence, knowing it coming out of high school, he was just that damn good. And then Joe Burrow was having a great year. And the Bengals, the organization, they're finally starting to step themselves up. And it's all because of that happening. So, all right. So we're digging in deep today. But there's an awful lot that we obviously have to get into. But I'm excited for these playoffs. It's definitely going to be a fun time. And there's going to be an awful lot of storylines that I think every single one of us are going to see and we're going to figure out. So coming up next, the Baltimore the Baltimore Ravens right now have a dilemma that they have to deal with. So, as I've said, Lamar Jackson is hurt. He's not going to end up playing in the game, which means that Tyler Huntley is going to end up starting, but they're going to rely on defense. But I don't think it has to deal with anything of the injury. I think it has to deal with more of that. I will explain that coming up in the bottom half of the hour. NFL Prime Predictions Playoff Edition in the wild card. You don't want to end up missing that. I'm real confident on how these picks are. And moving into the divisional round, it's going to get even better from here on out. All righty, folks. Well, since we are officially sponsored now by Fanatics, the one place where you can get all of your sports gear during this playoff run. Link is in the bio, in the descriptions. Everybody, right now, Fanatics has some kicker deals going on online and also shop around for all great deals on your favorite teams in the playoffs, especially up to today, tomorrow, and Monday. You don't want to miss out. They've got extra percentages off on every item you purchase, whether it's apparel, accessories, so much more. Shop now and show off your fandom at fanatics.com. Link in the bio. Shop now. Get yourselves geared up for the playoffs today.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo,
yeah.
no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving
Well, folks, during wild card weekend, get your bets in as well and get yourselves up in high gear. Great bets happening right now on superdraftpro.com, the one-hit app, also affiliated with Caesars Entertainment. Superdraft Pro is more than just a sports app itself. It is the future of sports betting. Sportsbook, and of course, prop bets and daily fantasies happening every day, every week. So sign up like a pro, play like a pro, share like a pro with friends, families, and coworkers with superdraftpro.com. I know a lot of this with the narratives in the wild card weekend. This is why that I think it's just going to be so explosive, because in the end, I mean, the Chiefs and the Eagles, they all have their first round buys. So I know a lot of people are all kind of looking at Kansas City, because even myself included, I mean, Kansas City gets the first round bye. The Bills and the Bengals and several teams in the AFC all are on a mission. They are all trying to accomplish the one goal, and that is getting past a lot of these top-tier teams. I mean, anybody that plays against Philadelphia will be well-rested. They've got all their starters, and it's going to be clear that, because Philly's got a lot of really good components, offensively and defensively, which is why it'll be a lot harder, especially when you're going into a position where anything can happen. But there's going to be a ton of surprises. So, all right. So, the Baltimore Ravens are playing the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow. One of the big things about the Baltimore Ravens is that, yes, they are great defensively. They've always had the defensive pedigree, from Ed Reed to Ray Lewis to even what they have right now. Calais Campbell, good defensive tackle. Marlon Humphrey. They have lots of great talents on defense. Offensively, Mark Andrews he's a great tight end. One of the top 5 best. And their run game, they're the kinds that are willing to punch you in the mouth. And they run hard. They bust through the D-line, and they're willing to get yards after the carry. So my big thing about Baltimore, because as far as the quarterback position is concerned, yes, they've won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer and with Joe Flacco. But you got to realize, too, in the era when Trent Dilfer was the quarterback, that defense was loaded. And they've had also some real good components all around the offense. I mean, they had Shannon Sharp as a tight end. They had Jamal Lewis. There were several really good components. And one thing to keep in mind of, because the wide receivers weren't as great. When Joe Flacco played in 2012 in the Super Bowl, they had a really good offense. I mean, they had Jacoby Jones. There were parts, I believe, because Anquan Bolden was playing at the time. So they had a lot of really good key positions. And Baltimore went on to win the Super Bowl against San Francisco. Here we are with the Lamar Jackson thing. And Lamar Jackson is wildly talented. Here's what you got to understand. These are some of the numbers, and especially, too, when you look at Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson is on the field, he's winning close to about 80% of his games, which makes Baltimore that dangerous. And, of course, he's a former MVP. Another thing, without him, not the same team. Not as accurate, not as fast, not as consistent as some people leave it to believe. So, without Lamar Jackson, this has now become one of those things where Baltimore is kind of hit in a corner and they've got to pay him. I think it's about that time they need to pay him. Because if you let him walk and you let him go elsewhere, he'll be successful. He'll be successful everywhere else. There's no doubt about that. He has great successes, MVP on his belt, winning 80% of his games. And there's no question. There's no question that he'd be able to make a lot of noise around in the league. I mean, could you imagine with him in that Miami offense? That offense is fast. Running backs, wide receivers. I think the only one that's keeping his pace at tight end is Mike Gesicki. That's it. But Lamar and the quarterback would be super fast. And Miami, because I feel like it would be a really good fit. I mean, he's from Florida, so why not be up in South Beach? But the big thing about it is that Baltimore really has to come to that realization. Look at your division. Joe Burrow is as good as everybody sees him. And Kenny Pickett, by the way, yeah, he may have struggled at least from the first half of the season, but then did you see the second half? He got better. Offense has started to really play to its expectation. And then you've got Cleveland and Deshaun Watson. Look, I don't care that much, especially for Deshaun Watson because of the whole entire case. But the only thing I can say about the whole thing is that Deshaun Watson, you're hoping that he's good next year because he took a few years off. And we know with the whole lawsuit and the investigation and all the rest of it, I have my own personal reasons behind all of that. And I'm not happy of what Deshaun Watson had basically done in his own, but that AFC North has a lot of full potentials. In Pittsburgh, they can go out, and they're not paying Kenny Pickett anything. They could go out, get offensive line. They could go and get defensive help. I mean, hell, they got great stars, TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick. They got several great stars right there on the defense. And Mike Tomlin hardly ever loses. So you don't think Pittsburgh would end up making noise in that division next year? I mean, knowing Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, they've got a really good offense. Offensive line is much better. Defense is a really good situationally. And then there's Cleveland. So you got to think about it if you're Baltimore. I know a lot of people kind of get pressurized by stuff like this. But clearly Lamar Jackson is a first-round talent. Runs the football, clearly can throw the football, and he distributes, and he's winning 80% of his games. The team is better with him. Without him, they're kind of feeling like an irrelevant franchise. And they couldn't possibly solve the problems. I mean, they went out and re-signed Roquan Smith to a 5-year, $100 million contract. I mean, they are caring so deeply about defense. And this was just before. So they re-signed Roquan Smith before even considering Lamar Jackson. People are thinking he might play on a franchise tag. Are we sure he's even wanting to play on a franchise tag? If I put up MVP numbers and I'm winning majority of the games, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. This is clearly not Dak Prescott. This is what Baltimore has to understand. In Dak's case, Dak needs help. For Lamar, you just got to give him better receivers. He can win you games. I mean, he won games with Hollywood Brown. He won games with Rashad Bateman. He won games with Devin Duvernay. But they're not great. Hollywood Brown's a really good receiver, but the rest of them are not that good of receivers. So you still need help from there. Hell, DeAndre Hopkins is out there. You can make a case to even pick him up. I mean, Baltimore's been known for that. They went and got Steve Smith Sr., and then they ended up getting Anquan Bolden. I don't know what the deal is with Baltimore, but I just look at the wide receiver room, and I see with what Lamar Jackson does. And he can throw, he can run, he can do almost everything Baltimore asks of him to do. And you're not going to be willing to give him a contract? He's not going to play on that franchise tag. That just feels a lot like a slap on the wrist. And I would be feeling the same way too. I know his mom is his agent and he's trying to, and they're pissed and they're basically dealing with a lot at the end of it. But this is not a good look for Baltimore, and it won't be better the second Lamar is out the building, because you got to get yourself a real good distributor of the football. Even if you're trying to trade up to going and getting picks and maybe possibly getting a first-round talent in the draft, you could, but what does Baltimore have? What is Baltimore really that they're going to end up giving up some of those picks? And at the same time, giving up Lamar Jackson to trying to inquire it. It's going to take a whole lot. But I guarantee you that there is going to be a team out there that would be willing to sign Lamar Jackson. I mean, Washington could be possible. And then there's Miami. I think those are going to be the only places because Derek Carr, as I mentioned, Miami could have had him, but they said, oh, no, we don't want him. So he's not feeling the love in Miami, and that's fine. I'm sure that if he goes to the Jets, he'll remind the Dolphins and remind the Raiders why he's led the league in fourth quarter comeback drives. So this is why I'm like Baltimore has to understand what they have because they haven't fixed up their wide receiver core for the last few years. Offensive line kind of felt like it was a little banged up. And then what do you expect Lamar Jackson to do? Because I just feel like they've got to pay the guy. If he's winning 80% of the games, I know a lot of people have skepticism as far as, can he win a playoff game? Well, clearly he did. It's not like he can't win a playoff game. He did it just like that. So, I don't know. I just think this whole thing with Baltimore just kind of seems sketched, kind of seems fishy in some areas. But I guarantee you, the second he leaves that building, Baltimore's not the same. They feel, because have you watched Chicago and how they butchered quarterbacks and they're big on defense? Take a look at your blueprint, Baltimore. I mean, you'll be in the same boat as how Chicago is. Because Chicago can't get out of that 1950s television. They can't move past defenses. I mean, yeah, they traded away a lot of guys to go and get picks so that they can spend big in the offseason. But, I mean, hell, there's even talks about them potentially trading to getting Bryce Young. You think that's going to solve a lot of things? And you really think that Justin Fields is the issue? I don't know. It's just too interesting for me. But I just feel like that if I'm Baltimore, I ain't letting Lamar Jackson go. I'd be so shocked of the fact that Baltimore wouldn't give him a contract, and then this is where it ends up. So, all right. Time now for the news.
Hot press.
All right, so we got several news that has been happening all around in Wild Card Weekend. So sources are saying that the LA Rams, they are to pick up Matt Stafford's option bonus. So the Rams, they are expected to pick up Matthew Stafford's 23 option bonus and the 24 salary by the third day of the league year. The option bonus and the 24 salary will pay Stafford a combined $62 million in guaranteed money. If they decide not to pick up the option, Rams could designate Stafford at post June 1 cap, in which this would have counted him $13.5 million against their salary cap, and then an additional $36 million in 24. So ultimately, what's happening is, and the Rams just announced this today, Sean McVay's not going in. Sean McVay is remaining to be in the head coach. And look, Sean McVay is young. But what happened to the Rams this year? I know a lot of people had question marks about it. But what happened with the Rams, injuries all over the place. And they got to make Allen Robinson work next year. Because who signed him to a 3-year contract? It just looked like he disappeared. Then there's Cooper Kupp gets hurt. Guys are getting old. I still feel like that, honestly, there's talks about it. I think you should possibly trade Jalen Ramsey to get picks. I think it's about that time you start focusing on getting first-round, second-round picks because they are so notorious for giving up first-round picks. It's not even funny. But again, the Rams, like the health issue was the biggest problem. Offensive line inconsistencies. I mean, they were clearly missing Andrew Whitworth. And, I mean, there is potential there for the Rams moving forward. I mean, I know Baker came in a backup role where he's going in. I mean, he's clearly running his stock. But that just shows you what Sean McVay is willing to do. And he's an offensive genius, much like Kyle Shanahan, much like a lot of these guys. And my big thing about that is the Rams are going to potentially figure this thing out. But injuries, inconsistencies, I think this is honestly the right thing to do because you went and traded for Stafford. And Stafford and even Jared Goff had similarly the same numbers when they are coached under Sean McVay. So I think this will be just fine. I feel like the Rams could potentially they could very much potentially make noise for next year where they'll be a lot better. All right. So I don't know what this I don't know what happened up into this game, but this was absolutely just nuts. So there were 7 missed calls that were happening in the Lakers and Mavericks, and clearly in that game because it went to double overtime, and the Mavericks, I mean, they went out and they played great. They were absolutely destroying the Lakers from that first half, and I don't know what happened afterward. And I think part of that with those missed calls was absolutely just insane. But Luka Doncic, all throughout that game, Doncic went 53 minutes and had 35 points of his night, 14 of 28 on the field, 4 of 9 on the three-point line. And, I mean, he was just tearing it up all throughout that game against the Lakers. But it's, I think for me, for the Lakers, they should have traded Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook really ahead of time before they got hurt. I'm serious, because the Lakers right now, it just looks like it's an absolute scout team outside of LeBron James. It seriously does. Patrick Beverley, not available on the bench, and you're dealing with a lot of young kids. And this Lakers franchise, because they are so known for buying into stars, but they are not great when it comes to developing the next star. The only ones that they developed has been Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant. Those were the 2 stars that they built under that system. Everybody else, they went and got. They went and got them up on free agency. They went and made trades. But God, the Lakers right now are just atrocious. And you're looking at the Mavericks right now because the Western Conference, I mean, Golden State managed to be at the very least 500. And then Dallas, I love Luka Doncic. And I said this before, when he came into the league, he was going to be a hyper-aggressive scorer. But I didn't think that as far as his potential, like, talent level was going to be this high. And he's making assists. He's making a ton of plays. He's really distributing the ball well and is really shooting well from within the wing and on the outside and even on the perimeter. So right now with what's been happening with the Lakers, it's just been a complete start to show all throughout this whole moment. And it drives a lot of Lakers fans nuts. But as we're continuously watching this, I mean, it's like a horror film. Like, you're seeing a lot of these young kids, and nothing against them, okay, because they know they gotta build and they gotta develop. But the Lakers, like I said, like the Yankees, they just go and they buy stars, but they don't take the time to develop future stars. I mean, Aaron Judge could be the exception to that rule for the Yankees because, my God, they paid him that high, and we knew that him coming into the league. He's a giant. He hits for the home runs.
This is the hot press.
He is quality.
This is the hot press.
He is quality. He's quality talent. So ultimately, the Yankees know what they have. But as far as everybody else building within the organization, it's tough. So I don't know what you do with it. All right, so that is the hot press. All right, so our prime predictions for the playoffs, and this is absolutely entertaining because we actually had a really good season this year. 140 to 124. We were right there up above 500 and all throughout every single one of the games. I mean, there were dogs that showed up, favorites that finally had covered a lot of those games, but it's been a tough round all through and through, but man, was it exciting to watch. And all throughout the season, I was really happy with it. I think we could be a lot better come down the stretch for next season. And I think, and my hope is that next year, hopefully we could get at least a sports betting affiliate from that point on. So there's going to be a lot of different changes coming into it for prime predictions, but I've got my prime predictions here this morning, and we are going to be taking off on it. So here we go. Let's turn it up. It's Jake's prime predictions. Seahawks at 49ers. I'm going to take the 9.5 and take the risk on the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is a really, really long shot game for the Seahawks, even though that they got experience on their end with Carroll and a little bit of Geno Smith. But Geno Smith, this is only his first time up into the playoffs himself. I just don't see with Seattle because this is such a young team that San Francisco is just going to push them all around. And what did Pete Carroll use all throughout the season? He used a lot of his young stars. And Tariq Woolen, Kenneth Walker, and several others, they've been looking really, really good all throughout the season. So I was really, really impressed by how the Seattle Seahawks really played out this year. But it's really interesting to say the least. But I think this will be one of those games. I think Brock Purdy, yes, as a rookie, it's hard when you've got rookie quarterbacks because of the fact that in the last few times rookie quarterbacks have started in a playoff game, they're 1-8. So wins was Russell Wilson did it as a rookie in 2012, and he played RG3 that year. So there is some speculations to all of that, but I think Brock Purdy, he's not really shook. He's not really afraid of the competition. So I'm going to take the 49ers to win 31-20, comfortable at home. Defense is going to shock everybody against Seattle, and it's going to be one of those games that San Francisco is just going to be mauling all over the Seahawks. Chargers at Jaguars. I'm going to take the LA Chargers knowing that even because Mike Williams is hurt. Does anybody know about Josh Palmer? Tall, same build, willing to make big-time catches for Justin Herbert. By the way, you remember the game against the San Francisco 49ers when they were without both their receivers? And the game got close. It was 22-16. The defense is healthy. Here's the other part that you got to realize. Jacksonville's going to be hit on the right side of that offensive line because Cam Robinson, he's now listed as out. Who is on that right side? Joey Bosa. So Jacksonville's got to beware of the Bosa. And one big thing about the Chargers in the last few games before they came into Denver from week 13 on, they have been really, really good in the second half. They've limited to where there were no points, 7 sacks, and they've lessened the opposing offenses to less than 150 yards. So the Chargers defense is finally starting to light it up, and they are really playing some high-quality football. And Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, I know that this is going to be one of those games. I don't know if it's going to be a shootout game, but it'll be tough because it's a one-possession game. It's going to come down to who can make the throw, who's going to make the score. And I think the Chargers, because being down that, here's the thing. Next week, if they make it, because they got to play the Chiefs, Rashawn Slater would be coming back next week.
And we know with Mike Williams' injury, won't be available unless the Chargers make it to the Super Bowl. So it is a tough task. But there is a lot of speculation happening all around on Brandon Staley. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win 27-20 against the odds. And I think the Chargers, because they faced Jacksonville last time, they were heavily injured. Nobody was playing great. But I think now they are healthy. Without Mike Williams, they got Josh Palmer. I think they win this one 27-20. Dolphins at Bills. I don't even think I need to explain it about this one. I think that the Dolphins are just going to be absolutely boat raced. This is a line at 13 that I can take very easily. Listen, Miami looked real good on offense. Okay, they got offensive pieces, but you would be dumb to be firing Mike McDaniel because of some of the things that Brian Flores even pointed out. Tua will not make it through in this league, especially with the injuries, especially with a lot of things that have been happening with that organization. Miami has to come to a clear understanding of what they have. And I think they got a great offense, but they got to get a quarterback. I mean, the executives are already kicking themselves on the back because they should have taken Justin Herbert. You ask any executive, they'll tell you that. But Buffalo, they are playing for something here. They're playing for Damar Hamlin. They're playing for all of the Buffalo Mafia fans. And the Bills, their offense, it's still taking off. It's still one of the best. The defense is going to get better and better with it. But I think Buffalo absolutely steamrolls the Dolphins 35-17. And I'm confident about that 13.5. Cheyenne said Viking. I'm going to take the underdog New York Giants. I just have a very, very concerning feeling about Minnesota walking into this game, being at home, because it's part of it. There's a few things. Kirk Cousins and the defense. Offensive weapons, I know what I'm getting. And even for Za'Darius Smith and for Patrick Peterson, there's some good pieces that are there. But I feel like because of how the defense has played in the last few weeks, this has not been great. The Vikings are a real good team. There's potential into that. But I feel like because Brian Dable has done such a great job, he's my vote as coach of the year. I mean, to turn around an organization like the Giants to being back in the playoffs, because they made it to the playoffs once in 10 years. Now they're back in it. The offense with the run game with Saquon Barkley has never been better. It's looked real good. I think with Daniel Jones and some of his limitation, he could try to, at the very least, finagle it. But the Giants are going to be relying on that run game. And if it's successful, the Giants really do have a shot. But I think Minnesota, they're going to get banged up and they're going to be exposed. I'm going to take them to win 27-24 over the Vikings on the road, because if they don't stop that run game, that smells trouble for them in this game. Ravens at Bengals. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals 8.5. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed win, but here's the thing. Baltimore, we know in the last few matchups between the two of them in division rivalry, defenses have both showed up. Now, I know Baltimore is without Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley's going to get the start, but the defenses, they look healthy. So it's not going to be very easy for Joe Burrow moving forward. But remember, Joe Burrow overcame a lot of this last year. He had a horrible offensive line, and they still made it to the Super Bowl. So Lael Collins, I know, banged up. Alex Kapp banged up. So the only thing that Joe Burrow has to rely on is that everybody's got to get on the same page as him. And I think that they can. Baltimore's offense, even with this defense, has not looked great. They have been scoring under 17 points without Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson scoring at 24-27 in any given night. So this is a different transition, and this is why I'm so critical about Baltimore. I think Cincinnati does come out on top at home, comfortable with Joe Burrow. I think he'll be just fine, even with the banged-up offensive line. They're going to beat Baltimore here 30-17. I'm going to take 8.5 for the Bengals to win comfortably at home. Cowboys at Buccaneers. I have never been so sure about the Cowboys until I saw this. So I like Tampa Bay. I do like Tom Brady. God, that offense all throughout the year has just been abysmal. The 2 weeks ago, Mike Evans finally went off. And Tampa is concerned about some of those inconsistencies. I don't blame them. I just feel like this could possibly be the last year for Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. He's going to want out of there. The Cowboys, I mean, what do teams do when they get embarrassed from the previous week? They come out and they win. They're out there swinging. So the Cowboys, they know that they are playing for something. But again, I have never been so sure about this game until what I have seen from the Lions. And not to mention, with Dallas in that embarrassing loss against the Commanders, they are wanting payback. And I think that they'll play better than what they did last week. Plus, this was the Sunday night, the week 1 Sunday night game between each other. So Dallas is familiarized with Tampa Bay and with Tom Brady. So I think this will really, really be entertaining. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win here 27-23. As I said, I've never been more sure about the Cowboys until up to this point. 27-23 Cowboys upset Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. So there's my prime predictions there for you guys now. So lots of favorites and only one underdog. So I'm taking the Niners, the Chargers, the Bills, the Bengals, the Cowboys as favorites, and then the only lone dog Giants. Because, again, I just feel like that there is just that bit of a concern with Minnesota moving forward. I mean, their defense at times when they get exposed, when Minnesota gets exposed, they're not the same team. Okay? They are not the same team at all. And I have seen this firsthand. And again, Kirk Cousins in big time games. You're at home. If you underperform against Brian Dable and Daniel Jones in that offense, Derek Carr's out there. You're going to need somebody who's going to be accurate of the football, and at the same time, he's putting up really good numbers. So if you're tired of seeing inconsistencies, Derek Carr's out there. So I'm telling you, I just don't. I'm in that much belief that the Giants, they are really going to give it to Minnesota. I just feel like that run game with Saquon Barkley, and as healthy as it has been all year long, it's been a problem. It has been a problem for certain teams. And it's what level? I mean, good God, they were 6-1 to start the season. So it's been a problem for a lot of different teams. But again, tonight I'm definitely going to be having my eyes glued on that Jags-Chargers game. And it's going to be fun. So I can't wait for it. And these playoff games, super excited about it. I think this will be very, very entertaining. We're getting exactly all the quarterbacks that we asked for and what we wanted. So I can't wait for it. All righty, folks, that's going to do it for me here on this edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show. I appreciate every one of you guys for coming on, liking, following, subscribing to all social media platforms. We just hit 500 finally on Instagram and on Twitter. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers on all three. I am doubling down, folks. I want us to get to that point with your love and support. Share it out. Share the hell out of it. I appreciate every one of you guys for your love and support of the show. Tomorrow, got a very special guest. David Drogmeyer from Locked On Chargers is going to be joining us here talking about Justin Herbert, the state of Brandon Staley and his coaching job, and so much more. Jeremy hopefully will be back with me tomorrow. I guarantee it. But thank you guys so much for joining in. I have appreciated every one of you guys, and we will see you tomorrow morning on the next edition of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, you guys. Have Have a great wild card weekend as we get geared up for wild card weekend. Take care, you guys.